Welcome to another episode of Coder Conversation. Today we have guest Shehara Wooten. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kevin, for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, definitely glad to have you. Just to let the audience know, you're a CFP, and I believe you focus specifically on tech professionals and kind of like the Black community. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll share a little bit about my background and how I even got to where what you're just stating. I'm an electrical and computer engineer by training. Went to the Ohio State University, and after
Mhm.
working my career there, I just really had a heart for how do I get into financial literacy and empowerment. I was actually an engineer in Philly, and went to a financial empowerment event, and it was through the Urban League Young Professionals. And I remember I was 25 years old, and was like, wow, I've never really seen a financial planner. So I ended up going to the table where there was a financial planner and asked him, I basically said, hey, I'm 25 and I want to retire at 30. Make it happen. 30 seemed ancient at the time, which is not ancient, but at the time it did. And 5 years, I knew was short, but I didn't really enjoy what I was doing. So I get me out of here. So retirement was the only thing I could think of. But yes, I that's how I, started that journey, because I started to really get into learning about financial literacy, learning about the holes and the gaps that I hadn't learned about growing up and in school. And I just said, wow, you know what, I really enjoy this. Let me see what it's like to become a financial planner, financial advisor. And it's just been a journey. So I changed careers. Almost, it'll be 19 years coming up here in August. And of course, as I learned more and more about finances, I realized that there was a wealth gap. So when you talked about the Black community, that's where that passion started to flourish, in learning how do I become a part of the solution. Because by 2053, it has been stated that Black wealth is supposed to go to zero, and unless we do something about it. And I was just it's just astonishing. It's a staggering statistic, and my prayer is that it doesn't happen. So my goal is to do what I can on my part, and so I got to do what I can do. But we need others to participate, and then that's also where I'm looking to help to close the Black wealth gap, but also I focus on really Black women STEM professionals as well. So I think of my 25-year-old self, and just get drawn to that community.
Yeah, interestingly enough, my background is kind of the reverse of yours. I wanted to get into finance. My background is actually I got a degree in accounting, but then
Oh,
transitioned to tech. So,
wow.
like, how was that journey from going from tech to accounting? I know that's kind of a huge, like a huge shift.
So just to clarify, I am not in accounting. I don't like accounting.
Okay.
I do not like it at
Yeah.
all. So let's get our CPAs and our bookkeepers. Let's keep, I stay in my lane. but but I love financial empowering. I love financial literacy, and that's what got me into finances. In terms of personal finance, I don't even
Mm.
really focus in on business finance either. I just had a heart like, wow, okay. I started internships in college when and during those internships, I remember saving in 401k because of the internship. They were paying me well. They pay engineers really well in internships. And I was like, wow, let me participate in the 401k. But I didn't really fully understand what a mutual fund was, what stocks were. And it just always was something interesting. I remember in eighth grade, we had this businessman come to our class, and it was through junior achievement, which I think at that time was really in its infancy stages. And he would come and teach us how to read the stock ticker. And so there was always that was a seed planted. So there were these seeds planted throughout my life that where it was finally like, wow, you know what? How do I do this? How do I understand how stocks work? How do I understand how mutual funds work? What is that? And so when I changed careers, it was just this opportunity to get into the field and learn while I was working. So that's what really caused me. I just really wanted to know, how does this work, and how can I do this? And I think, engineers, you just have that mindset of, let me get in there, let me take it apart and see how I can put it back together, right? And so that's
Hmm.
exactly, what I did. I got in it, got in the trenches, and it's very similar to anything that you do. If you're, just hanging around at the house and you want to take something apart, you put it back together, see if it works. And so that's really what it was for me, just trying to get in there and learn as much as I could.
Absolutely. I know, like you mentioned, tech professionals, they can make a lot of money fast, and but what a lot of people don't realize, it doesn't matter how much you make; it matters how much you keep. And a
Absolutely.
lot of professionals, they can end up broke because they're spending so much money. So, like, what are some of the common issues you see with some of the clients in the tech space?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I just see a lot of, we maybe, it really depends on their background. So let's just say, as a scenario, you come from a background where you're the only successful person in your family, you're the first college grad. No one else has ever done reached these heights, and you don't even know, like, and I'm talking about as you're coming out of college and it's your first job, you buy this brand new car. As soon as it comes off the lot, it's lost all its value. So you see a lot of people just, creating and buying depreciating assets. So not really understanding the importance of their net worth statement, and understanding the difference between what is an asset, what's a liability, what's an appreciating asset, what's a depreciating asset. I remember a lady told me that she wished she would have known somebody like me coming out of college, because she, got an apartment, and the first thing she did is she did like one of those furniture rental places. So rather than
Hmm.
buying furniture or saving up to buy some furniture, she rented the furniture. And then if you've ever heard of some of the horror stories that can come out of that, she ended up, basically mortgaging the furniture and paying a lot more in interest than she should have. So these are some of the things that happens, that really happens to folks, is that they don't even understand that beautiful equation, saying net worth is assets minus liabilities. And I think when you come out of a job, when you come out of college, really understanding that equation, it starts to shift your focus on what should I be putting my money towards. And that's just a start. Then I'm really big on cash flow planning too, and just really understanding, like, what is it that you need to do to understand what's coming in and what's going out, and not experiencing, as you increase, as your salary increases, a thing called lifestyle creep or lifestyle inflation. It's like, like, wow, I'm making all this good money and I keep making good money. I keep getting raises and bonuses, but where's the money going, right? Like, you hear people say that, where did it go? Like, I used to be able to live off of 30,000 and I was good. And now I'm living off of, 150,000, and I don't know where my money's going. So that's where we've got to start putting in some systems so that you can and recalibrating your focus.
Yeah, absolutely. And in an investing world, they have that rule of 72 where you divide, 72 by the interest rate, and that tells you how long it takes you to double your money.
Mhm.
And what a lot of people don't realize is that when you get them credit cards, that principle works against you. And some of these have
Yep.
like 20%, 30% interest. So
Yeah.
you don't really hurry up and pay that off, you're going to be paying that forever.
Absolutely. So, yeah, so the credit card companies use that to their advantage, and we just got to start using it to our advantage. And the thing that I tell people with that too is that like you said, 20, 30, I haven't seen 30% yet. My goodness, that is just astounding if I ever saw that. But, you know, where can we guarantee that we can get ourselves a 20%, 15%, rate of return? I don't promise that to my clients, but if you use a credit card, they can guarantee themselves that they're going to get 20% off of you, 15% off of you, or depending on your credit rate, maybe 9%. But still, these are the things that we've got to be mindful of, is how it works and how we can use it and use it to our advantage once we understand, how that all works. Definitely.
Absolutely. So we have a comment on mine. He says, I teach finance for the math and STEM. Items bought on sale by using credit means you actually pay more than the original price.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, why buy it on credit? So when I do behavior-based cash flow planning, one of the things I have my clients do is, even if you're getting points off of your credit card, and sometimes it's like, oh no, Shahara, please don't do this to me. But I tell them, stop using the credit card for a bit here. And only use the credit card if you absolutely are trying to get points. Only use it for what I categorize as a committed expense. Those are your mortgage, your rent, utilities, maybe Hulu, Netflix, those types of things. If you're able to afford those types of uh, those types of cool things or whatever. But I break things up between your committed expenses and your spendable expenses. Committed expenses is going to be those kind of expenses that don't have emotion. They're non-emotional expenses. Even though the utilities fluctuate, they go up and down and all of that, you really don't, it doesn't go up and down because of your emotions. But dining out, buying gifts, entertainment, even your groceries, those go up and down because of usually our emotions, how we're feeling that day, or what we have to do. If we have a party to attend, we're going to buy a gift that week. So I like to split the two out so that people can really focus in on, for first of all, what's most important, and then how that discretionary money, where is it going, and then from there you're able to really start to see, okay, this is where I've got to kind of pull back, or this is where I'm showing where my priorities are. So for spendable dining out, all of those types of expenses, I don't recommend using a credit card for that. Use your debit card, make sure that, and separate them into two different accounts. And so I have like a whole system in terms of how I help people do that. And typically, because I help people do that, I'm able to help you find money. So that's the other thing. People are like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I'm just at the end of it. So there could be a case where, yes, you are spending way more than you bring in. And that's why you're using credit cards. But I find that a lot of people, when we get you on a behavior-based system, I'm able to find money for you. And then we can start getting that money working in places where we are building those assets. But a lot of times it stops with, let's just stop using the credit card for a bit. Yes, I know you love those points, but typically we've seen that those points don't normally. They really, what they really do is they increase your behaviors to spend. So it's really all to the benefit of the credit card company. Now, I'm sure there's outliers, but I'm talking to the majority of people who, when they use their credit card, they are spending more.
Yeah, what I like about what you said is your approach is behavior based because you could tell people the theory and say, hey, you need to save X amount, but there's habits that kind of form the behaviors that lead to their financial status.
Yes, there's habits, and a lot of times, we cringe when we hear a budget, so I don't even use the term budget most of the time, because most people are not doing a budget. I posted today on LinkedIn that the budget is one of those things where 2 out of 5 people, they've never even budgeted, right? 59% of people, or it's like 59, I believe, that they're not even tracking expenses. And so people are just so busy, right? So I just said, okay, how do I help people? And I found a system that allows me to help them in the place that they're at. Some people, they love their spreadsheets and they're doing a great job of doing all that. But I'm talking to the majority of folks who they're really not doing it. And so once I came to that reality, I was able to, help them implement a system, and that behavior, it basically it's allows you almost to create like an electronic envelope system, right? So you got two separate accounts. This is where all my committed expenses go. This is where all my spendable expenses go. And then once I find out how much money I have left over, I can start systematically budgeting. This is where I do use the word budget. I budget for making sure I can build up my emergency fund. If I own a house and I know it's like 10 years old, then I know some repairs are coming up. So let me create a house fund and I'm a budget for that. Or I like to take trips. Wow, that would be awesome to, take a big trip 2 years from now. Let me find out how much that's going to cost and let's automatically save into it and budget for that. So those are the areas that I do use the word budget, is for some of those like 3 to 6 to 12, even 5 year goals that you might have. Then we can start to figure out, like, when do you want to do that, and how much does it cost, why do you want to do it, and let's start saving and automating. Automation is so key, because if you have to think about it, people are just busy. They're very busy and they don't want to have to spend all that time. It causes shame, it causes fear. Finances do that. So that's where I'm trying to just kind of link up with you where you are, and let's see how we can resolve this so you don't have to feel stressed out and anxious about your money. Let's try to resolve that. Yes.
Absolutely. Armani brings up an interesting point. I see people using credit to live beyond their means. Buying food on credit is a red flag.
Absolutely. It is a red flag. And that's why I tell people that's buying food, dining out, that's a spendable expense. That's an emotional, what we call the emotional risk. That has emotional risk. So that's why when you are doing it on your credit card, you're not bringing in enough. You might be doing it for points. Let's say you got enough money for it. So for you folks, okay, we got that argument. But I'm talking about the folks that are doing it because they have to. They're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I have enough this week. Let me put it on my credit card, and then we can see as if my food is covered. So there's something that we've got to address there as to why you're feeling anxious about putting something so uh, crucial to just living. You're putting it on your credit card. Buying your food on credit, is definitely a red flag when you're using it because you're afraid that you may not have enough money that week.
Absolutely. And I think just like getting in the habit of eating out every day, that can lead to essentially like a car payment's worth of just food every month, like $15 a day times 10, 150 times 3, 450. Like it's just that, getting coffee, these little tiny expenses can really add up.
They really can. So what I do is with the behavior based cash flow planning, what I do is I tell you, based on the income and based on your committed expenses, I give you a recommended spendable number. So if you're bringing in 5,000 a month, and we recommend, oh wow, you could actually spend 1,000 a month on dining out and entertainment and these types of things. So I don't do forensic accounting. I don't tell you stop eating a lot, stop eating out, or having a latte or what have you. But I say, okay, you've got, it's almost like an allowance, like a stipend every week. Okay, based on this, the recommended number is for you to spend 250 a week. And I find that when I give people that recommendation, they're like, "Oh wow!" So I just put this in the account, spend that 250, and I can do that every week, and I'm okay. Like, I'm free. I don't have to figure out, is that okay, because we've already taken the money found. We're already allocating that towards retirement plans. We're allocating it towards emergency fund. We've already got other things taken care of. So now you're able to still live a life without restraint. And so I find that majority of the people, if they actually have like their rent and their mortgage in a proper format, like you're not overextended in those areas, then the spendable recommendation that I give you is usually more than enough. That's what I hear a lot of people tell me. They're like, "Oh, I can spend 350 a week. Wow, I think that's more than what I usually spend." So it really has worked for folks, and it's just one of those things where we just got to categorize and compartmentalize.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach of just not being like restrictive, like, hey, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Like people usually end up doing that if you tell them not to. So
Yes.
saying,
They're like, "Oh my gosh, I drove past, Starbucks and I wanted a latte. I felt like I needed it that day
mm-hmm.
because, I had a bad day or something like that." And oh wait, Shahara said I can't have no. Shahara did not say that. She said you've got 250 that week to spend. Now you got to decide, do I have enough left over for the latte after everything else I've done? So that's where it's just an opportunity to link up. It's worked, and that's what I love about it. It has worked, and I love that we're talking about the behavior based cash flow planning because I think it's super important. Yeah, super important.
So do you also take that approach to getting people to invest and put their money in the areas that they should?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, once we figure out what your spendable is and your committed is, then we look at what do you have left over? And then now that money found now becomes a part of your committed, because now we're going to take and we're going to say, oh, wow, it looks like every month, based on this recommendation, you have, as an example, this is all hypothetical, you have $1,000 left over every month. And I know you're saving in your 401k. I know you're doing this, but we need to look at, you need to get 3 months of an emergency fund. So let's take some of that $1,000 and put it towards that. You qualify for a Roth IRA. So since you qualify for one, let's start taking some of that $1,000 and putting it towards that. So we have various goals, and we look at the most pressing. And when I say we, I'm very big on collaboration. So we look at the most pressing things that you should be focusing in on. What were your biggest concerns when you came and talked to me? Well, let's take some of that money found and put it towards that. But yes, investing is one of them. I also have like a financial wellness scorecard that we look at too, because I think that that's really important, to see, like, okay, what is your savings rate? What is your spending rate? And then based on that, we can see what we need to improve upon. So the same thing happens. So there's a couple different areas of focus that we have, and to not overwhelm the client, or anybody, we try to do it in stages. What can you work on? What can we start to improve upon? But investing is a big part of that. It's part of the appreciating assets, part of the net worth equation that we want to build.
I know a couple of financial products that are often overlooked is like life insurance, and even something like a will to make sure your assets are going to the right places, when you pass on. What do you think about those?
Absolutely. So I think as a part of a comprehensive financial plan, you really should be looking at, your risk management. So, not just life insurance. You want to look at disability insurance. Depending on your age, you might start to look at long-term care insurance. Um, so, I have a framework that I like to share with people, and it's called Build, Live, Save, and Give. So when the foundation that I first talk about is build. So building your network, that's why we started with that. And then the next would be to live. So for understanding your cash flow, we already touched on that. And then the next would be save, and I also include protect. So save and protect. So within the saving, obviously you're going to protect yourself by having an emergency fund, making sure that things are taken care of in a short-term emergency. But what if you are the breadwinner in your house? you want to make sure that your family is taken care of, that they can live the same lifestyle that you have given them if you were to pass away, especially if they're relying on your income. It's the most loving thing to do. So you want to make sure that you have, life insurance for your loved ones. You want to make sure that you've taken the time to either do a will or a trust. It really depends. And I tell people, go to an estate planning attorney and determine, which one's going to be best. But the beauty, of a will is that, or a beauty of a trust is actually that you avoid probate. Probate is where when you pass, your information goes out to the public, and any next of kin can actually say, okay, hey, I would like to take advantage of uh, these assets that this person has built up. So basically, a trust will protect against that, and it's not just for rich people. So I think it's really important for people to take the time to figure out which one is going to be best for them. And then the last part of the four keys that I say for building financial wellness or building wealth is going to be to give. And so, as a part of our legacy, a lot of people, they feel the most happiness when they give. There's so many studies done where it's showing that when you give and when you share your resources, you really get a lot back from that. And so, and happiness is associated with it as opposed to doing it all for yourself. So, giving is a really great strategy, and a lot of people don't even know about this. But in terms of like creating a legacy, everyone can do it pretty much. You can create like what they call a poor man's foundation, and that's through a vehicle called a donor advised fund. And so I just want to share that because a lot of people don't realize that this is something they can do. So you might have a IRA, you might have a 401k, you might even have a health savings account. But in terms of your giving strategy, you might want to be very intentional about your giving. So you put money you can contribute to a donor advised fund, and the year that you make that contribution shows as if you contributed to a charity, and you can write that off. And then once that money is in there, it can be invested. So eventually over time you can write out what they call grants. And the only way that you can actually distribute those funds would be to a charity or a nonprofit organization. You won't be able to take those funds out for yourself without any penalties and things like that. But it's just another way to be very intentional about your overall financial planning. And so I always like to bring it up. I have a book, so I just want to share that in the meantime. And I talk about pretty much all the strategies that we discussed here so far. But yeah, it's called "In the Meantime, Own Your Financial Narrative," and I go through a lot of that.
Yeah, where can people get your book?
Oh yeah, so you can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. What else? What are some other areas?
Audible.
I recorded it myself. So it's my voice that you'll hear. So Audible, it's a Kindle paperback, and it's also a hardcover for people who are like, I really love, some people are like aficionados and they love
Mm.
hardcovers. I didn't know that till I started publishing a book. So yeah, it's everywhere. And then if you're in the Dallas area, the Doc Bookshop is carrying my book. New Orleans Community Bookstore. If you're in Columbus, Ohio, you can get it at a Kibalon bookstore. I believe it's called a Kibalon. And then yeah, so it's in various places all over the country.
So I know in your book you kind of talk about like the history behind, especially in the Black community, how why we may not be as wealthy as we should be. Um, like how do you kind of see us like overcoming some of those barriers? Because I know a lot of the financial problems kind of like systematic.
Absolutely. So that's why that was a big draw for me to write the book too, is that I didn't want to just write a book just about, okay, budget. Okay, invest. Okay, get an estate plan. Let's get some life insurance. I was just like, I was even bored, you know. I was like, okay, I'm a little bored by this, but it's great information, but you know, we've seen it. We've seen that. So I was really just in working with the clients that I've worked with in the past, and what drew me to, you know, starting to do this profession is I really started to see that there were some discrepancies between the types of clients I was working with based on their ethnicity, based on where their background. And then as I started to research, I learned, oh, there's a wealth gap, and it's 228 years in terms of the difference, the gap between Black families and white families. So Black families, it would take them 228 years to catch up. I also had seen, and I think these statistics came out, I believe it was about 2017, where Black wealth was around 17,000. So the net worth about 17,000, whereas white families' wealth was about 171,000. So I just thought, man, this is there's got to be something, you know, more to this. And some people just feel like, man, why is it so difficult for me? Some of it is, you know, in fact, due to the systemic issues and a history of exclusion in the country. So I started to research. I started to research, how did it affect us with life insurance? And I do a whole thing about that. And you know, it started, you know, enslaved humans were being insured, you know, by big name companies, companies that we, you know, household names today. They were being insured. So the enslaver was able to, you know, buy life insurance on them. And so over time you start to see like, okay, why is it such an issue, you know, within the Black community? And then on top of that, you started to see with life insurance, even it was harder to get, for a Black person to get life insurance. Life insurance is a great way to push forth wealth and create a legacy. And so, you know, if it's something that we were excluded from being able to participate in, that hurt us. There's so many factors, you know. I start off. I tell everybody, read the introduction. I talk about Greenwood, the Black Wall Street, and there were many, many communities just like that were thriving and building. And even beyond the fact that they never got reparations, they were able to still build a community, but then it got burnt down. And this
Mm.
happened many, many times. So you could think about during the Jim Crow era, the terror that impacted communities that were able to create things and do things that were beyond what we could ever think. But then it got burnt down. So you could see where the discouragement could come over time. But I just tell people, you know, we're resilient. We can do this. We can continue, and we need to continue. And so that's why the title of the book was, you know, in the meantime, own your financial narrative. Because in the meantime, even if there's no, like, if there's never any reparations, which I do believe that it's going to happen eventually, if there's never any reparations, I want people in the meantime to own your financial narrative, understand how to build wealth. That's why I incorporate it, and hopefully inspire people to say, hey, I'm going to do this despite and in spite of. And then I interviewed quite a few business owners, entrepreneurs, regarding like, how did you build wealth? And so that's in the book too. So there's various stories too to inspire people to do this. So I tell people, yep, in the meantime, own your financial narrative. And then if you do get a windfall of money, whether it be reparations, an inheritance, or a bonus, or you build an amazing business, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to handle it? How are you going to grow it? How are you going to create a legacy of wealth for generations to come? So that's my motivation. That was my motivation for writing the book.
So I know some of the people listening, they may want to get in contact with you and work with you. What does that process look like?
Absolutely. So right now I'm mainly focused on um, really ambitious early to mid-level career Black women STEM professionals who are in a place of being paralyzed, stuck. They just don't even know what to do. and I help them create a financial plan and then to get to a place where they don't have to rely on anyone for their financial future. And so with that, I just tell people, why don't you go on and go to yourstoryfinancial.com/links, and you can check on there. But I also just tell people, link up with me on LinkedIn. That's the first place. That's the best place to go. That's how we met,
Yeah.
is through our love for LinkedIn. So definitely, let's do it. Let's connect. And I would say the best place right now would be to connect via LinkedIn.
And if somebody doesn't fall in that category, like say like a black male, is he still able to work with you?
I would say more of a one-on-one basis. So let's talk. I love to do it, and I have all types of clients. I have
Hmm.
Asian, Hispanic, Black, white. So I have all types of clients. It's just right now I'm working on a project that is mainly focused. So that's where a lot of my focus is right now. But definitely, that's why I say go to yourstoryfinancial.com/links. You'll see also a free 30-minute learn more call. And if you feel like, wow, I don't really fit the category she just named, let's talk and let's just see where you can fit. And if I can help, if I'm able to give you a resource that could help, I'll be happy to do that too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I like this topic here, but I know we're trying to end, but I like this statement, I want interest paid on my reparations. I tell you. Absolutely, Imani. So yeah. So anyway, but thank you so much, Kevin.
Oh, I definitely appreciate you for coming on. Did you have any closing thoughts for the audience?
Well, I want to say I just want everybody to be encouraged. Be encouraged. I think there's no greater time than today to be out there building wealth. There's the gig economy. There's so many ideas that we have. There's so much access that we have to get out there and take your ideas and build amazing wealth and do it in community. I tell people nobody's doing this alone. So find your community, find the people that you trust and get out there and let's do this. Let's build this wealth and let's create a legacy of wealth for generations to come. Let's help the next generation.
Absolutely, I agree. I definitely appreciate you for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kevin. I've enjoyed this conversation.
Likewise. And I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll catch y'all next time. Peace.